The alien council had gathered again, the room heavy with tension. Their once confident faces were now tight with uncertainty. The humans had been quiet for too long, a silence that had unnerved even the most seasoned members. They had expected diplomacy. They had prepared for negotiations, for the exchange of power, influence, and resources. But this was something else entirely. "I told you we were underestimating them," a voice hissed from the back of the room, but it was quickly silenced by a harsh glare from the council leader. "We didn't expect this," the leader replied, his voice laced with disbelief and growing panic. "We were ready for trade, for a show of weakness. We thought we could control them. And now they've deployed the Blackstar." The room fell into an eerie silence, the words hanging in the air like a cloud of poison. The Blackstar, a name that, for generations, had been whispered only in legend. A weapon so destructive it was said to be able to erase entire civilizations. "With a single command, they thought it was mercy," the leader muttered to himself, disbelief creeping into his voice. It wasn't. The monitors flickered to life, showing the position of the Blackstar as it moved toward the heart of the alien fleet. A vast, black ship, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly sheen, moved slowly, deliberately, its engines barely visible against the backdrop of space. The scale of it was incomprehensible. Even the Council's most powerful ships paled in comparison, and this was Earth's ultimate weapon. "This can't be real," one of the officers said, his voice cracking. How did they build something like this?" The council leader's face darkened, his jaw tight. "That's the least of our worries. We've lost contact with our outer fleet. The Blackstar is jamming all frequencies. It's not just a ship, it's a message. Earth is saying they don't need us." The words were like a slap to the face. For centuries, the Council had prided itself on its dominance over the galaxy. They had destroyed, conquered, and manipulated countless civilizations into submission. Earth, they thought, was just another relic, another weak, backward world ripe for control. But now the tables had turned. The leader clenched his fists, his mind racing. This wasn't just a military defeat. This was the destruction of their entire worldview. The humans had been quiet for so long, biding their time. And now they had unleashed the most feared weapon in the galaxy. "We can't win this fight," an officer whispered, but the council leader quickly silenced him. "We have to fight," he spat. "We'll retreat, but we'll destroy them as we go. But his words faltered as the display updated again. The Blackstar was closing in on them, faster now, its weapons primed. "What are they waiting for?" the leader demanded, pacing, trying to make sense of the chaos. "Why aren't they firing? This isn't like them." "That's because they're not firing," the officer responded, his voice trembling with fear. "They're waiting for us to move first. This is their way of telling us they're in control." The realization hit the council leader like a blow to the chest. Earth wasn't attacking out of rage. They weren't using the Blackstar because they were angry or seeking vengeance. They were doing it because they could, because they had been waiting for this moment. And now, with a single ship, they had crushed the entire council's belief in their supremacy. I don't know what to do," the leader whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "We've failed. They're too powerful." But as the fleet watched helplessly, a sudden spike of energy surged across the monitors. The Blackstar's engines flared with a blinding light, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to stop. The hum of the fleet's engines faltered, their ships hanging suspended in the black void of space. It was like time itself had bent, frozen in place. Then, in an instant, the Blackstar opened fire. The beam was so bright, so concentrated, that it seemed to rip through the fabric of space itself. The energy hit one of the lead ships with the force of 1,000 explosions, tearing it apart in a flash of light. The council leader watched, his face pale, as the ships around him were engulfed in the same devastating blast. The Blackstar was not just a weapon, It was an embodiment of Earth's might. The Council's fleet, once the most powerful force in the galaxy, was reduced to dust in seconds. We've lost, the officer whispered, his voice full of disbelief. The leader didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the monitor, watching as the Blackstar moved through the debris of their fleet, effortlessly wiping them out. It was over, and then the screen went black. For a moment, no one spoke. The council leader stood motionless, staring at the empty screen, his mind in turmoil. Earth had done it. In one swift, silent motion, they had torn the council's empire apart, not through force or violence, but through sheer, unrelenting power. The council had expected diplomacy. They had expected negotiations, compromises. They had believed they could control Earth, bend it to their will. Instead, they had been taught a brutal lesson. They didn't need us, the leader muttered under his breath. We thought they were weak. We thought we could control them. He paused, his voice thick with disbelief. We were wrong. And that was before Earth even responded. The alien council had expected mercy. They thought that their superior technology, their vast empire, would be enough to sway Earth into submission. But Earth had given them something far more devastating: silence. A silence that spoke volumes, and when the Blackstar fired, it was as if the galaxy itself had been turned upside down. The council leader understood now. Earth didn't need them. And now, Earth would never have to worry about being ruled again. The Blackstar was the final word. The message was clear. The galaxy had just learned that Earth was not to be underestimated. The Blackstar hovered ominously in the cold expanse of space, its silhouette cutting a sharp contrast against the stars. The once boisterous chatter in the council chambers had died down, replaced by a suffocating silence. Every officer, every strategist who had been so certain of their victory was now frozen, staring at the screens in disbelief. The leader of the alien council paced across the room, his steps heavy, the weight of their failure crashing down on him with every step. "I don't understand," one officer muttered, barely able to lift his eyes from the screen. This was supposed to be a simple negotiation. Earth should have bent to our will. This wasn't supposed to happen. The leader's gaze was hard, unwavering, as he stared at the chaotic remains of their fleet flickering on the monitors. He could see it clearly. The ships torn asunder, their hulks floating lifelessly in the void. What had begun as a mission to impose their dominance over Earth had quickly turned into an unmitigated disaster. The Council's fleet was in tatters, nothing more than burnt-out remnants of their former power. "The humans have always been unpredictable," the leader said, his voice low and resigned. "But this is something different. They didn't just survive. They were waiting for us." Another officer spoke up, her voice trembling. "How could we have missed this? Their technology, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. They've been hiding it for centuries." The leader clenched his fists, feeling the pressure build. It's not just their technology. It's their will, their capacity for patience, for long-term thinking. They've learned from their mistakes. They've waited, bided their time, and now they've shown us just how wrong we were to underestimate them. The room was still. No one dared speak again. The Blackstar, Earth's ultimate weapon, continued its slow, deliberate path across the remains of the fleet. It was a symbol of humanity's triumph over the arrogance of the galaxy's so-called ruling powers. We thought they were insignificant, primitive, the leader continued, his words biting now. And now, with one ship, they've erased everything we've built. The officer at the console spoke up again, pulling the leader out of his thoughts. "We've lost contact with every ship in the outer fleet. Our remaining ships are retreating, but they won't be able to escape in time. The Blackstar is targeting them one by one." The leader exhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. "We can't run from this. We've played our hand and lost. Earth has won. We're irrelevant now." Another officer, his voice filled with panic, piped up. "We've tried. Everything, countermeasures, strategic withdrawal, even sending diplomatic signals. They haven't responded to a single one. The Blackstar is still advancing. We've failed, the leader said, his voice almost a whisper. He stared at the images of the fleeing ships, already overtaken by the energy blasts from the Blackstar. They were scattered, desperate, trying to escape from an enemy that had already proven it was unstoppable. We've failed them all. His words hung heavy in the room. The Council had once believed itself untouchable, but now they were a broken empire, humiliated by the very planet they had written off as insignificant. The more the leader thought about it, the clearer it became. Earth hadn't just fought back. Earth had anticipated their every move, planning for this day from the very moment the Council had set its sights on them. He turned to the officer in charge of communications. Have we attempted a final transmission to Earth? The officer nodded. Slowly, clearly reluctant to report the failure. Yes, sir, but there's no response. All our attempts are being blocked by the Blackstar's signal jammers. It's like they're shutting us out. It's not just a military defeat. It's a message, a declaration. The leader paced again, frustration mounting. What are we dealing with here? This isn't just an ordinary weapon. It's a statement. Earth is telling us they won't be controlled. They won't negotiate. They won't bend to our demands. The officer at the console spoke once more, his voice barely audible. It's as though Earth has been preparing for this moment, for this. Right. It's like they were just waiting for us to show up to make a move. The leader's brow furrowed. Waiting for us to make a mistake. They've been watching us all along, studying us, learning from us. They've been silent, watching the galaxy, another officer added, building their power in secret. We never noticed, and now they've proven that silence was their greatest weapon. The leader's mind was racing now, trying to piece together the puzzle. Earth wasn't just defending itself. It wasn't merely retaliating against a power that had long dismissed it. Earth was sending a message far bigger than this one confrontation. It was a message for the entire galaxy. I underestimated them, the leader said bitterly, stopping in his tracks. I thought they were weak, and that was my mistake. We assumed that because they lacked the technology we had, they couldn't possibly fight back. But they've shown us just how wrong we were. We underestimated their resolve, their patience. He turned to face the Council, his voice cold with realization. Earth is no longer a subject for diplomacy. It is a power in its own right, and if we do not change our approach, we will face the consequences. The room was silent. For the first time in centuries, the Council found itself at a loss. They had been brought low by an enemy they had once considered beneath them. The fleet had been decimated. The Blackstar had spoken louder than any words ever could. Prepare for retreat, the leader finally said, his voice lacking the force it once had. We have no choice but to retreat. But this war, this conflict, it's far from over. Earth has made its intentions clear, and we need to reconsider how we approach them from here on out. The officer who had been monitoring the retreating ships looked up from his station. Sir, there's no use. The Blackstar has locked onto us. It's not allowing any ships to leave. We're trapped. The leader's mind reeled, his grip tightening on the console in front of him. We are trapped? The officer nodded, his face ashen. It's not just a weapon. It's a strategic command. Earth has made it impossible for us to leave, and we're powerless to break free. A deep, hollow silence filled the room. The alien council had been reduced to mere spectators, as Earth demonstrated a power they had never imagined. There were no more negotiations, no more posturing. Earth had shown the galaxy that it no longer needed the council, no longer needed anyone. They were no longer in control, and deep in his heart, the leader realized that Earth had won the war, before it had even begun. The cold silence of space was almost deafening as the alien council gathered in the briefing room, their once proud empire now in disarray. The monitors flickered weakly, showing images of the Blackstar, now positioned. directly above the remains of their fleet, as though it was a sentient beast watching them. The leader of the council stood motionless, eyes fixed on the screen, absorbing the full gravity of their situation. "We've been beaten," he muttered under his breath, barely audible. "Completely crushed by a planet we deemed insignificant." Behind him, the officers shifted uncomfortably. One by one, they had fallen silent, the words of the leader too heavy to contest. The fleet was in ruins. The Blackstar had rendered their once mighty warships into debris in mere moments. There was no glory in this defeat, only the sting of humiliation. "Tell me again," the leader demanded, his voice sharp and strained. "Why Earth hasn't destroyed us entirely yet?" An officer hesitated, then spoke. "The Blackstar. It hasn't destroyed us fully. It could, but instead it's holding us in place, almost as though they're toying with us, as if they want us to understand the full scale of our defeat." My leader ran his hand through his thinning hair, frustration boiling within him. "Earth's never been a pushover, but this is something entirely different. They've been preparing for this. They've been waiting for us to make the wrong move. We've fallen into their trap." Another officer spoke up, his voice full of unease. "It's not just the Blackstar. There's something else at play. Here I've been scanning their comms, and there's a pattern. Earth isn't just waiting for us to respond. They're broadcasting across the galaxy, sharing the Blackstar's capabilities." "Sharing?" the leader asked, his eyes narrowing. "They're sending out data about the Blackstar's technology," the officer confirmed, his fingers moving across the console. "They're showing the galaxy that they are no longer the underdog. They've turned the entire galaxy's power balance on its head." The leader's mind raced, piecing the information together. "So, they're not just destroying us, they're sending a message. They're making sure everyone knows that they are the ones in control now. And we gave them the opening." A wave of bitter realization hit the leader as he thought back to the Council's initial decisions. The arrogance, the underestimation of Earth, and now this, a weapon, a single ship, capable of rewriting the galaxy's power structure. Their pride had blinded them. They had seen Earth as nothing more than a fragile, forgotten planet. And now Earth had made it clear that they were anything but. "We've underestimated their intelligence, their resilience. I thought we could manipulate them, break them down with diplomacy, with promises," the leader continued, his voice now tinged with regret. "But they've turned the tables on us. We've walked right into their hands." The silence in the room thickened. The council members exchanged glances, none daring to speak. They had been prepared for a challenge, yes, but nothing on this scale. The Blackstar had obliterated their confidence, and now the leader could feel that confidence slipping further and further from his grasp. "What do we do now?" an officer finally asked, his voice cracking slightly. "We can't escape. The Blackstar has locked us in. We can't even send a distress signal without them intercepting it." The leader's thoughts darkened. "We can't fight them head-on. The Blackstar is too powerful. We don't have the resources to challenge it, let alone their entire planetary defense grid." For the first time, the leader felt the full weight of their defeat. It wasn't just the battle they had lost, it was their entire future. Earth had demonstrated that they were not a weakling to be ignored, not a primitive species to be brushed aside. They were something entirely new, a force that couldn't be bargained with, a power that would shape the future of the galaxy. He turned back to the screen, watching as Earth's defenses continued to flicker in the background. The Blackstar remained poised, waiting, its dark presence an indomitable reminder of just how little the Council had understood. The Council had expected negotiation, diplomacy. They had expected Earth to crumble under the weight of their advanced weaponry, their empire's might. Instead, Earth had shown them a different kind of power. "We've underestimated them," the leader muttered once more, "and now we'll pay the price." The tension in the room grew heavier as the council members waited for their leader's next command. They had no ships to fight with. Their weapons were useless against the Blackstar's technology, and as much as they had tried to justify their own superiority, they had no argument left to make. "Is there any chance we can salvage this?" another officer asked, her voice full of fear. "I mean, we can't just let them do this to us. We need a way out." The leader sighed deeply, a sense of helplessness consuming him. "I don't know, I really don't. Every option we've considered leads us back to the same place. They're in control. Earth's not negotiating anymore. And even if we wanted to make peace, how can we face them now?" A long silence followed, punctuated only by the faint beeping of the consoles. The officers were clearly processing the same horrifying thought. They had no way out. Earth had won, and the Council had no strategy, no countermeasure, nothing that could turn the tide. Finally, the leader spoke again, his voice resigned but laced with determination. "We need to contact our allies. Spread the word. Earth is not to be underestimated. We were wrong. If we don't make alliances, if we don't shift our approach, then we're all doomed. But the Blackstar is a message, a warning to every empire in the galaxy." The officers nodded, though their faces were pale and filled with uncertainty. The leader's mind spun as he contemplated their future, or rather the lack of one. They had tried to break Earth, to control it. And now, with the Blackstar looming above them, Earth had shown them that they were not just a part of the galaxy. They were its new rulers. The Council was finished, but Earth's rise was just beginning. As the Blackstar hovered in the distance, the leader realized that the galaxy had changed forever, and he couldn't help but feel that their civilization had been left in the dust. "Prepare the fleet for an emergency retreat," the leader finally ordered. "But prepare yourselves for more. This is only the beginning." And as the room fell back into a stunned silence, the weight of the Council's failure loomed over them. Earth had shown them that dominance was no longer something they could claim. They had miscalculated, and now the galaxy would feel the consequences. The Blackstar loomed overhead, its engines pulsing with an eerie dark glow as the Council fleet, once a mighty force, drifted motionless in space. The leader of the Council stood in the center of the room, watching the flickering monitors, his expression hollow. The silence in the chamber was stifling, broken only by the soft hum of systems that were no longer functioning at full capacity. "We've lost," the leader muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. His voice was drowned by the wave of realization that swept over the room. Earth had not only bested them militarily, but had also shattered the very foundations of their beliefs, their confidence, and their sense of invincibility. They had entered the battle expecting to impose their will on a primitive planet. Instead, they were now prisoners of their own arrogance. "Sir," one of the officers said hesitantly, "the Blackstar? It's still waiting. It hasn't moved. It hasn't even attacked again. It's observing us." The leader didn't reply immediately. His gaze was fixed on the ominous vessel in the distance. Earth had not even begun to destroy them completely. No, it wasn't about annihilation anymore. It was about sending a message to the Council, to the entire galaxy. The message was clear. Earth was not to be trifled with. "The question is," the leader said slowly, his voice low, "why haven't they finished us off yet? Why haven't they destroyed us all?" Another officer, a seasoned strategist, looked at the readings on the console. "It's like they're letting us linger. They're keeping us alive, trapped, to remind us of who holds the power now. They don't need to destroy us. The mere fact that we're here under their control is enough. They're letting us see the full scope of our failure." The leader clenched his fists, the weight of it all crashing down on him. "So this is how it ends. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. We have no power left. Earth is in control, and the galaxy knows it." He turned back to the screen, watching as Earth's defense grid continued to pulse, as if to prove that it could obliterate them at any moment, should they decide to do so. But there was no rush. Earth had already won. The power was theirs. "Now, what do we do?" the officer asked, his voice filled with despair. "How do we face this? How do we—" The leader's response was cold. "We retreat. We return home, tail between our legs, and we spread the word. Earth is no longer just a planet, it's a force, and if we are to survive, if we are to ever regain any semblance of control, we must learn to negotiate on their terms." The room grew heavier, the realization sinking in like a lead weight. The alien empire, their empire, was broken, and they had no way of mending it. Earth had proven that they were more than capable of standing alone, of reshaping the balance. Of the galaxy with nothing more than a single weapon. "Send a message," the leader said finally, his voice a mixture of bitterness and reluctant respect. "To the rest of the galaxy, to our allies, to our enemies. Earth has won, and they are not to be ignored. It's time for a new reality, one where they call the shots." The officer at the console nodded, typing quickly as the leader's words reverberated through the room. The message went out, a single, unmistakable transmission that would reach every corner of the galaxy. Earth has risen, and now it will shape the future of the galaxy. We are no longer in control. A new order has begun. As the message sent, the council leader stood in the center of the room, lost in thought. For the first time in his life, he felt like an outsider. In the galaxy he had once ruled, Earth, once seen as insignificant, now stood as the undeniable force. The galaxy would never be the same again, and as the Council fleet began its long, reluctant retreat, the leader knew that Earth's victory was not just a military one, it was a philosophical one. They had shown that power was not just about technology or weapons, it was about patience, strategy, and understanding the long game. And Earth, in its quiet, unassuming way, had been playing it all along. "Let's leave," the leader said quietly, his voice thick with defeat. "But mark this day. Earth has rewritten the rules, and we must live with the consequences." The fleet turned, moving slowly at first, as if reluctant to leave the confrontation they had failed so miserably. But Earth had already won, and in the wake of their retreat, the leader couldn't help but feel that the galaxy was now undeniably Earth's to command. As the final ship of the Council fleet drifted into the distance, the leader took one last look at Earth, its surface now glowing, with the promise of a new, undisputed power. The future had changed, and they would have to learn how to live in it or perish trying.